Hey everybody, Kelly here from the farm on Highway J. It's been about 3 weeks, and so what have I been up to? Well, you can see that I still have my Halloween quilt hanging up behind me here. I did, however, get the backing all sewed together. I've been kind of letting it hang out for a while I try to decide how I want to quilt it. And I think what I've ended up with is I'm going to go ahead and set it aside until I get an opportunity to practice on a long arm at some point. I'm thinking that I want to try to find someplace near me that offers classes before I actually would even consider, of course I would consider buying a long arm, but financially it's not in the picture. But before I would even do that, I would like to take some classes somewhere and actually maybe rent some time on one or something like that. I just keep looking at her and thinking I could use my little domestic machine and quilt this or quilt that. I could cross hatch it and just be done. But I don't really want to have cross hatching across the owl's face. I would rather do some custom quilting, like outline the little wings and, you know, highlight part of the owl, that sort of thing, and then do some maybe less custom on the sides. But anyhow, so I think I'm just gonna kind of set her aside and make that a future plan. But in the meantime, I kind of like the look of her back there, so I've been leaving her hanging while I'm working on some smaller projects. So I've actually been gone for a while because we went to Door County, Wisconsin this last week or 2 weeks ago now, probably. Time is flying, you know. We actually went up through Minnesota and had some appointments in Rochester, and then went over to La Crosse, Wisconsin, stayed the night there, and then drove across southern Wisconsin. And of course, while we were driving across southern Wisconsin, we had to make a stop at Primitive Gatherings. So Lisa Bonjean, Primitive Gatherings, her retreat center is in Larson, Wisconsin, or outside of Larson, Wisconsin, near Appleton, Wisconsin. And so while we were driving south, it was maybe, 10-15 minutes off the road that we needed to take to head toward Sturgeon Bay, toward Door County. So I said, let's stop. And so we did, and I was pretty good. I didn't get too many things. I might have a couple of Christmas presents coming. I can't remember all of a sudden. But anyhow, so my mom went in with me and we did a little bit of shopping. And I purchased, sorry for all the rattling, maybe I should have taken it out of the bag, 2 of Lisa Bonjean's books. One for Dear Santa and one for Snowman Gatherings 2. Or, sorry, 4. I was thinking 2. I don't know why. Try not to show the patterns in here, but I was going to show one of the first things that I want to do when I can find it here. Should have had it turned toward it. Well, that would be one of them. Isn't that cute? And I think it's on the next page. Let's see. Sorry, I should have had some tabs in here. Well, that one's cute too. Alright. They're very slippery. That's one of the problems with Lisa's books. If I can find it here. Sorry. That's all the templates. I shouldn't be showing that. This one. That's the one. I want to make that. That's so cute. I can't wait. So there's that. And then Dear Santa, of course, has her Santa panel. And just like so many different really cool patterns. So I can't wait for that. So I didn't actually get the Dear Santa panel yet. I've been kind of holding off. It was a little pricier than I wanted just yet, so I thought I'd hold off. I did get the Yuletide Gatherings flannel charm pack. Thought that was really cute and can make a cute little patchwork quilt out of that. And then I got the Farmhouse Flannel 3, which I'm going to try to do something that kind of reminds me of the lake. Because when you visit Door County is a peninsula in Lake, surrounded by Lake Michigan. And so I just thought a little vacation by the lake needs to have some project finished that reminds us of the lake. So I will figure out exactly what I want to do with that. Probably before Christmas. It's enough to make a small quilt, but it might also make some cute pillows, so we'll see. But yeah, just those couple of things from Primitive Gatherings, and gonna make some nice projects with it. Okay, so my next project is actually, I think we talked about this on the last video. The next project is going to be the Fall Barn Quilt by Tara Reid. I have the kit. I also have the panel and a layer cake. I was watching Moody Girl Creates the other day, and she's got the panel and a couple of charm packs. So I thought about I should probably have commented for her that I can't wait to see what she does with it, and I may do something similar, or maybe between the two of us we could both come up with something totally different and give other people some ideas. So that should be kind of fun. And it's, you know, definitely a very inspirational project right now, because we're going into fall pretty good. Here it is still pretty warm, but I think next week it's gonna drop pretty good. So, well, maybe not real fast, but the temperature's gonna start going down. So, and I kind of like the crisper part of fall. I don't want it to be cold just yet, but boy, I'm kind of looking forward to some coolness in the middle of the day. Just not necessarily the cold of morning and night. So anyhow, all right, so stitching wise, I've got a few other things to talk about, and then I actually have a lot of cross stitch to go over, but I think I'm going to put that into another video either next weekend or the weekend after. So, a couple of the things that I was working on while I wasn't posting videos the last 3 weeks, I actually did do a project on National Sew a Jelly Roll Day, and I'm going to try to post some video on that here at the end of this, and you might be able to see off to the side of me how that project changed. But I won't show it just now because I want to show the other clips. And anyhow, right now that project is actually maybe going to be a gift. I'm not sure. I probably better stop right there. So anyhow, what did I do while I was on vacation? While we went to vacation in Door County, so we stayed in Ephraim, which is on the bay side of the peninsula, and well, I don't know if that's how you word it exactly. I can't think all of a sudden. So like there's the side that is actually along Lake Michigan, and then there's a side where Lake Michigan kind of comes down in between Wisconsin and the Door County Peninsula. And so we stayed on the side that is kind of a bay between Wisconsin and the peninsula. And while we were there, we went to a fish boil. We went around some of the state park up there, and around to some of the lighthouses, the markets in the area. It was just kind of a fun little couple of days. And so got caramels everywhere we went. So that was nice. And yeah, so it was a nice little couple of days. And while we were traveling, I cannot cross stitch or sew while traveling because I will absolutely stab myself. And so I took a crochet project with me. The problem is, it's been a very, I grabbed some balls of yarn. I was gonna do a granny square quilt, granny square baby blanket crochet, and it's been a long time since I've done that, and I realized on the ride that it's been so long that I messed up something, and I just kind of kept going around, and I thought, I can work this out, I can figure this out, da da da. And I kept going around, and I got to a point where I was like, okay, I think I can still do this. I can flatten the da 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 da. I ended up making it about yay big, and when we got home, I just took it all out because it was not laying flat, and there was something puckering on like all four sides of it. So I just took it out. I'm gonna find that pattern and read through it again and figure out what it was that I had done wrong. I probably put in 2 stitches when I should have put in 3, or I don't know, something. And so, and as soon as I read it, it'll just click like that, and I'll be, that was kind of dumb. I should have just Googled it or something like that, but I kept thinking, no, it'll flatten out on the next round, it'll da da da. And I probably could have made it do that if I'd gotten it wet and like blocked it and whatnot, but it wasn't worth, I don't think it was going to be as good as it could have been, even if I took all that effort to do that. And so it just seemed easier just to roll it all back up and start over again. So to that end, I will show at least some of the yarns that I was going to use. So a couple of different colors here, and that one there. I think that's really pretty. So these are 2 very different ones, but then I think when you throw the third one in and the white, that it was looking pretty from the color standpoint. It just wasn't looking so good from the not necessarily laying flat aspect. But anyhow, so it wasn't really a waste of time. I mean, we were driving anyway. I would have probably just like watched videos, or I wasn't driving. Somebody else was, my dad was driving. And so I probably would have just watched YouTube videos or something. And so it's not like I was really out any time or anything. So, and in fact, it's one thing that I can do and still very much pay attention to things that we're driving by and etc. So it's a good vacation hobby to have. So all right, so we talked about the fall barn quilt and Moody Girl Creates and Jelly Roll Day, and so I'm going to put that video here at the end. I think I'm going to go ahead and end this here. I have a lot of stitching to discuss, a lot of cross stitch to discuss. I made a little bit of progress on a few projects for Halloween, but I have a lot of things picked out for fall. There's no way I'm going to get them all done. So maybe the next video will just be kind of looking through and getting an idea of things that I want to stitch this year versus things that we'll put off till next year. We'll talk a little bit about some magazine subscriptions that I have, and so one that I do want to talk about right now, well, all of a sudden, the Gift of Stitching magazine. They actually have their so it's a magazine that actually I think they stopped putting out the magazine in like 2012. But if you look up the Gift of Stitching magazine, .com, it actually has magazines from 2006 to 2012, and for like $29.99 you get access to all of those magazines for 6 years. And so, and you can just download it immediately, and it's got a lot of good content in it. It's not only articles about stitching, I mean, some really intricate stitching as well. And I mean, it's really a needlework magazine, and it has a lot of charts in it. It just, for $29.99, I am loving it. And I will never be able to stitch all the things that are in it. So anyhow, I just thought I'd let anybody know that enjoys cross stitch and maybe doesn't have that already. All right. So yeah, so thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Hopefully, thank you for subscribing. And maybe you could give me a thumbs up, and definitely give me a comment. So what did you sew for National Sew a Jelly Roll Day? Or, you know, if you're in another country, you know, I think that's just a, well, I think it's actually a Moda thing, or maybe it was Riley Blake. All of a sudden, I'm not sure. But yeah, you know, do you observe that? Do you, well, observe, that's kind of a strange word. Do you participate in that? And if you don't, what have you sewn with a jelly roll recently? Please let me know and give me some ideas. I've got quite a few jelly rolls around here, and I'm always doing different projects, as you'll see in the rest of this video here. Sometimes it starts out as one thing, and who knows? All right, well, anyhow, I will post the rest of the video, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you thanks for watching now, or I think I just said it a minute or two ago. Anyhow, all right, again, thanks for watching, and hope you have a good day, and I will see you, if not next week, the week after. All right, bye. So I started this project on National Sew a Jelly Roll Day, and I was planning on making a large area rug out of a single jelly roll strip. So I've got different strips on each side. And when I got it done, I thought this isn't really the colors of the person that I was gonna do this for. So I've been kind of thinking, what else could I use such a large already quilted piece for? And got to thinking, I would actually like these colors in a shoulder bag. So I think that's what I'm going to try to do here. And I don't really need this much for a single shoulder bag, so I may actually cut it in half right now, and I'm thinking I might actually do a gift bag and possibly a shoulder bag, maybe 2 gift bags. And so how I'm going to do that is actually by cutting it straight down the center, going this direction. So I have 42-inch strips here, and so basically I will cut it in half so that I have about 20 inches, 21 inches for the bag. And then of course with the seam it'll end up being more like, and I'm probably going to do 1/2-inch seams on these, so it'll probably end up being more like a 20-inch by 15, 16 high. And I think I'll try to box the corners and all that kind of stuff, but for right now I'm just going to cut it. And I'll bring you back when I decide how exactly I'm going to finish it. Because it could be a good size shoulder bag too, it just would be very wide, is the only thing. So maybe I'll have a strip left over, and I could do some hot pads with the strip left over. Or like a shelf liner or something like that. Alright, well, let's cut it. Let's see. Alright, so it should be right on. And I'm gonna go ahead and, it just looks so wide. Well, I mean, you're seeing the length of it, but for the width, that would be a very wide shoulder bag. It would be a nice gift bag size, though. And by the time you box the corners, yep, I am going to go ahead and cut it like this. Because if I do a gift bag and I want to maybe box the corners in, like, you know, if I want like a 3-inch width on the box portion, it's going to come in so far, and then it's going to make my bag very, very narrow. So I think I will just cut it right in half and cross my fingers that I've got my thoughts going right, and that I don't make it too tall and narrow. We'll see. Hopefully I can cut through this thickness too. It's going to be 4 fabric strips and 2 battings. But I think I got it, so. Alright. So now, in order to do the boxed bag, I will sew down the sides. I don't know why I use the word literally, but I will sew down the sides. No, actually, sorry, I'm getting myself mixed up. I've been making too many project bags, and that actually that could be something that I could do with the other half. I could do a box bag and a project bag. I think we'll do that. Alright, so I am gonna look over some things and come back with boxing the corners. Okay, now that I've cut my fabric piece into 2 pieces, I'm going to go ahead and sew a binding on the top 2 edges of my bag. So, just going to start sewing this binding on. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. I should have actually ironed it first. So, I will get that done and then I'll get it sewn on. Okay, I've sewn on my binding. If you can see the pins there, it's because I'm going to actually hand sew the inside of the binding. And I've actually done my French seams. So there's a lot of bulk right there. There's a lot of bulk in making the boxed corners on this now too. So, wish me luck. Hopefully I can get through it all. I may have to kind of box the corner here and then go right up to the seam and cut it off and then start on the opposite side of the seam, because I know I can't get through all of that. So let's see. Alright, and set my presser foot down. I'm going to take it nice and slow. Just because there's 4 layers of fabric and 2 layers of batting here. And now is when I'm going to have a tough time because of all the fabric from the French seam. So I may have to come in and hand sew some, just because my machine's not going to do it. Alright, go ahead and cut that off there. Back this out. Oh, there we go. And try to get on the other side here. This is a lot of layers of fabric, so I don't want to break my machine. Sure it's locked down. Alright, so that did pretty well. I may see if I can't get just a couple more stitches in here just by leaving the presser foot up and hitting the button. Actually, I might be able to go ahead and looks like I can needle through it, I just can't get it to feed through. There, now it's starting to feed. Oh, but it's catching up, so I'll have some loose threads to cut. You can see it didn't do a great job because it put some really long stitches in there. So I may go back through and hand stitch that down a little bit. But now at this point I can either cut this boxed corner off and then I just would zigzag stitch the remainder here, or when I turn it inside I can make this sit on the bottom or sit up on the side and I could just tack it into the bag. I'll show that again in a little bit. Okay, so I've got my tube turned inside out. I actually cut it into two pieces so that I could make two handles for my bag here, and now I am just pinning them into place, and I will sew down a little square on the handle bottom here on each one, and then I will have a nice little handle gift bag for a Christmas present. So I'll be sewing that down next, and then in the background here you can probably kind of see, let me tilt you up there, that I have put all of my scraps from the Halloween quilt on my board there, and so I've got a plan as to how I'm going to sew all those together to make the backing for that quilt. The piece on the bottom left hand side and on the top right hand side, those two pieces actually were a piece from another quilt, and so I just cut it into two separate little pieces. Actually, I might have had it already in two separate pieces, I can't remember for sure, but anyhow, I just kind of slapped a bunch of stuff up there on the board to get an idea of how I want to sew them together to make the back. And as you can see in the bottom right corner here, I'm going to have to do a good little bit of piecing. I think there's 5 or 6 pieces in there. Actually, 3. And I think I only need like 2.5 of them, but I'm going to go ahead and piece it all together, and it should equal a couple inches wider and longer than the top of the quilt.
Fish boils. We've been doing traditional fish boils here at the old post office restaurant since 1978 now, so 46 years they've been doing fish boils right out back here at this restaurant. I've been doing them here for the last 9 years, and we do the fish boils in every single type of weather condition, no matter what. So yes, even if it's absolutely pouring down rain out back here, we do not close the restaurant down for anything, but that's always the most commonly asked question I get. And yes, believe me, we can do this in the rain. I'm going to hit this thing with some kerosene to get it ripping hot again. So, aren't fish boils fun? Now before you guys, that'll get it boiling again in just a few minutes. Now before you guys all get here, I filled the kettle up with 25 gallons of water, 3 cups of salt going in the water. Salt is the only seasoning you put into a fish boil. That's pretty much all the Norwegian settlers had back in the old days. However, it does season everything quite well, the fish, the potatoes, and the onions. You get your fire burning. It takes about 20 minutes or so to get the water to really start to boil. Once the water's boiling, you start your timer. At 30 minutes, each fish boil takes a half an hour. Potatoes, they go in the kettle first for the whole half an hour. Onions will go in the kettle second, about 5 to 8 minutes after the potatoes go in, depending on the size of them. And then the fish will go in the kettle for the last 7.5 minutes or so. That's all it really takes to cook the whitefish. And on an average season, I cut up and boil about 35,000 pounds of them myself out of this kettle. So yes, that's what we go through just at this restaurant alone. However, we're always able to get fresh whitefish right out of our own local waters up here in Door County. So they're definitely an important natural resource to the area. Now the fish boil itself, this is an old Scandinavian tradition. It was started off by Swedish and Norwegian immigrants back in the 1800s up here in Door County. Northern Door County, where you guys are all at, is very rich in Scandinavian heritage. You do kind of see it all over up here. Well, the fish boils are a part of our old Scandinavian heritage as well. Most of the Swedes and the Norwegians who settled here back in the 1800s, they were homesteaders up here in Door County. They basically got free land by the government just to move up to these remote areas so they could start establishing growth to the upper parts of the Great Lakes. Some of them came up here and fished. Most of them came up here and worked in the logging industry. Those would have been your 2 jobs back in the 1800s up here in Door County. There was plenty of fish out in the waters, and the peninsula itself was heavily forested. Now, I'm pretty sure that the fish boil was never really meant to become a tourist attraction like it is today, as this kind of thing would have just been done in the logging camps and the little tiny fishing villages back in the 1800s up here. So that's pretty much how it all started off. It wasn't until around the turn of the century that people started to appreciate all this natural beauty Door County had to offer. They quit logging all the forests up here. They started preserving areas for state parks, including Peninsula, which is straight across the harbor, and they started to build and open the first hotels and resorts for tourists, including the Edgewater Resort. It opened up in the year 1900. It was one of the first hotels to open up here in the village of Ephraim. So right around that time, Door County started getting its very first tourists. Unlike today, where we get over 2 million visitors up here every summer, if you did come to Door County back in the early 1900s, you would have came up here by steamship. They didn't have the roads or highways built this far north on the peninsula until the late 1920s, so they started bringing tourists up here from Chicago and Milwaukee during the summertime by steamship. And if you were coming all the way up here from Chicago or Milwaukee on a steamship back in those early years, you probably weren't coming up here for long weekends or day trips like people do nowadays. First of all, the tourist ship, it only came into Ypres once a week back in those early years. Most of the people who did come up on it, they were quite well off, and they would stay up here in Door County for a few weeks to a few months during the summertime. And back in those days, when you stayed at a hotel or resort for so long up here, they cooked all your meals for you while you stayed up here, and everybody pretty much ate the same thing. Well, some of those old hotels and resorts started doing fish boils, not only to feed the guests, but also to entertain them, and that's how this tradition was born here in Door County. We basically have been doing fish boils the traditional way, just like this for the tourists ever since. So you can see it does go back well over a century. It's definitely a Door County original tradition, and you can date it all the way back to the very first European settlers we had up here in Door County. So it is a pretty neat thing. It's stuck around so long, and we still do it the traditional way like this, using firewood, and very soon a can of kerosene, which I have right over here. Now the kerosene thing you do at the end of the fish boil, this is probably something that was discovered by accident if I had to take a guess, but the last thing that you do at a fish boil, that is before you go inside to eat it, is boil the kettle over. Once all this stuff starts cooking in here, you start to get this layer of foam and scum, and there's even ash from the fire that simmers to the surface of the kettle. So somebody along the way came up with the boil over, where you throw a can of kerosene into the fire. Not only does it make a huge fireball, it makes a great picture as well, so have your cameras ready for it. More importantly, it'll make the whole thing boil over, and yes, all that foam and gunk from the top will go right along with it. It does actually work quite genius. You'll see for yourselves in a moment. After the kettle boils over, you guys go right ahead, walk back in between the two buildings, go right to your assigned tables, and the servers come around. They bring everybody a plate with a couple of whitefish steaks. You get boiled baby red potatoes. You also get a boiled onion. You put melted butter all over the top of that. You get homemade breads, homemade coleslaw, and for dessert, a slice of Door County cherry pie. Enjoy. It is quite a feast. Grab one of my flyers I have over on my rack. I was born and raised up here on the peninsula. I did print off all the key places to visit for people that are new to Door County, so feel free to grab one of those if you'd like as well. All right, grab your cameras. I will chuck the kerosene in, and you guys can edit that and eat. Sounds good? Sounds good to me because I'm out of breath.
Yeah, I was watching you.
All right, 1, 2, 3. I guess that worked pretty well. Look at that beauty.
Yes, I took a video.
What kind of dog is that? What's that? A stone. Okay. I like it. That's it. He's got a nice beard. Brave little soul. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy.